We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are sex people! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
It's good to see you.
You too, man. How's it going?
You're looking well.
You too. We have a film podcast.
It's going pretty well. We're doing a classic sort of post-interview intro recording.
It's called The Two Birds, One Stone.
Yeah, Trent and I interviewed the guest this week for the episode you're listening to right now, and for scheduling purposes, it makes a lot of sense to just record right after. But my body's all sweaty after an interview, so we do take a 15-minute break.
Wow, Parth, we've almost been doing this long enough that I forgot that I used to get drenched in sweat during the interviews, because I ain't sweating right now.
No, I don't get drenched in sweat, but I do get like, ugh, what just happened?
Wait, maybe it's just credit to our guest this week, because it was such like a fun, chill, nice interview that while we asked our 10 questions each, that our bodies didn't go into complete panic mode like they did for 5 years straight.
My body did not go into panic mode also because I was well fed.
Parth, that's why you're the transition king.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Well, Trent, right before we recorded our interview, I did something I don't know that I've ever done, which is
Had sex
yet to happen. No, the
sex with a woman,
even further from
from the considerable
from the reality we live in. Yeah. No, I've, as you know, been going to the gym, getting some gains in.
Yeah, dude, you look sick. Like, you look ripped. Oh my god, Parth is flexing like the Hulk right now. Wait, now his pants just turned into purple shorts and he's shirtless. Shirtless pod.
Trent, I did something I've never done before. I went to the gym.
Had sex.
I went to the gym 2 times in a row.
As in 2 days in a row? The next step is going twice in 1 day, Parth. I thought that's what you were about to say.
No. That would just be insanity. No, I went to the gym and, did my normal workout and then came back, took a shower, and then in 5 minutes, heated up and ate and put my dish in the sink. And I had leftover Kung Pao chicken that I made last night.
Kung Pao?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty good. Was it good?
It was pretty good. It was a little, when I was making it, it was a little saltier than it should have been. But then, you add the pepper and you add the chicken in and, suddenly the salt feels a little bit more evenly divided.
Are you curious about what's going on with me, or?
Not at all. But I'll ask. Trent, what have you been eating most recently?
It was just Easter, and the Easter bunny, or I would say my parents, but in reality, the Easter bunny brought some candy in the form of chocolate, Ferrero Rocher eggs, and they're really good.
Whoa.
So I've been snacking on a lot of those. Parth, did you ever have the Easter bunny?
My family never did the Easter bunny, but my next door neighbor when I was a kid did have Easter egg hunt, because my next door neighbor was, they were senior citizens with grandchildren, and so their house would be the place where people would get together to do things like the Easter egg hunt. So I have some vague association with Easter, though now that I'm in a committed friendship with friend of the show, Sophia Alexis, I do now celebrate quote unquote Easter with her family. They're not religious, but it's we'll go out to brunch or whatever.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We don't really acknowledge the religious aspect, but we're we'll wear some pastels, we'll put on a collared shirt, you go get brunch, you pay too much for it, and then you come home and it is as if a big rabbit had broken in and left you cool stuff. Me and some friends, because we don't even acknowledge Easter really, tried to go bowling on Easter. I said in the parking lot, Jesus has risen, but I'm going to knock these pins down.
Wow, well done.
But it was funny because there was so many Hasidic Jewish people at the bowling alley that there was a 2-hour wait. And it's funny that...
That's funny. It's like going to a Chinese restaurant on Christmas.
Parth, this is why we're friends and podcast hosts. It's like they were like, this is our data freaking bowl. Like, let's get it.
Sure.
And they were getting it. Then they were knocking those pins down.
But Trent, you want to know what I want to make sure the audience gets?
Wait, part one of this interview?
Part one of this interview. And there's a threshold we have to cross.
Before we start talking about it? Wait, can I get, is it the intro music?
Trent, do you want to cue it for me?
Do it and cue it, Parth.
Well, there you go. Cue the intro. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week, Trent, who do we have?
Parth, that ordeal, that hour-long interview, like, I don't mean to be dramatic, but that was dramatic. Like, there was a lot, and what makes something dramatic is the presence of drama. And Arseni Khatchaturan, I have a lot of nice things to say about him, but that was a dramatic interview.
Yeah, we talked to cinematographer Arseni Khatchaturan about his work on The Drama, the new Christopher Borgli film, which Trent and I both really liked.
Yeah, Parth went on the record and said it's his favorite movie of the year so far.
So far, yeah. Who knows? I haven't seen Super Mario Galaxy yet.
We should go.
We should go. Well, Trent, we did see the first movie together.
I think I consider that my worst movie screening of that year. But what's funny is when we were teasing this episode at the end of the Ready or Not 2,
that's true.
Here I Come Part 2, we joked that we would be covering the Super Mario's Galaxy movie. And if you make the joke enough times, it's almost like you have to get a guest and see the movie and ask them 20 insightful questions and then spend 2 weeks on it on your film podcast.
If the audience clamors for it, we will do it. I don't think the audience is quite ready for it. But what I think they are ready for is our interview with Arseni Khatchaturan. Was he cool, Trent?
He was cool. The movie was cool. I liked him. I liked the movie. He was nice. The movie, it's more complicated. But here's my official warning. Let's take a second.
I don't know that I'd call it a nice movie, but
if you haven't seen the movie, go see it, and then you can listen to this. Because I don't know exactly where it's going to cut off, but that might be a spoiler. And Parth and I both went to this movie knowing nothing, and I think we had the best possible experience.
Yes.
So if you can avoid even seeing the trailer, just go see the freaking movie. I'm
not quite sure at what point this interview is going to cut off because we literally just recorded the interview, but I'm pretty sure this first half is going to be pretty spoiler free, but I would recommend if you have not seen it, just stop this, go watch the movie, and then come back because I think it's going to be all the more worthwhile an experience.
Yeah, let's fucking do it, man. Parth, what are we waiting for?
Cue the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our interview with Arseni Khatchaturan. He's the cinematographer behind such films as Circus Maximus, Bones and All, and our film for today, Christopher Borgli's The Drama. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, guys.
So just to start off, can you tell us when you first knew you wanted to become a cinematographer?
Yeah, it's been an interesting path. I started out not in film and not in photography. I started out as a designer when I was a teenager and got involved in graphic design and web design and took that path, started selling stuff on Shutterstock when I was 15 and kind of was going in that direction, pretty committed, doing painting, drawing, sculpture. And then I think gradually the deeper I was getting involved in it, the more I was realizing that I don't necessarily love to work alone. I think it was getting quite lonely and I was testing my patience a little bit more and more. And I had somebody tell me that I should look into filmmaking, maybe into working in film, because it's a very collaborative process. So I started to do a little photography here and there, trying to get to know what it's like. My mom is a photographer, so started to get involved in that, doing some medium format and develop print photos myself. And then by the time I was ready to finish school and apply for university. Back home in Belarus, there wasn't really a film. There isn't a film school really. There was a faculty of TV and camera operating. So essentially, they would teach you how to shoot news or work at a TV channel. So that was the only option, and I applied and I got in. And I think it was useful. I definitely didn't have, I was there only for a year. It was useful. I didn't have an idea of what a cinematographer does necessarily. Like I've had some VHS tapes at home. I've seen all the Star Wars, and then I had a collection of Bergman. So it was like a very eclectic collection and the essentials. And I had a pretty ambiguous idea about what a cinematographer does. But I studied there for a year and got a pretty intense crash course. Like I definitely watched a lot of films in the first year. We would do a week of Tarkovsky, and then we would do a week of Kubrick, and kind of go watch 2 films a day, 3 films a day with other students. And that was very, very, very helpful. And just being a part of the community of young filmmakers, I think was helpful. And I definitely felt much better. I think I felt like I found something where I feel really comfortable, and I like to work with other people. I didn't want to direct, and I don't still want to direct after all these years. I definitely found it interesting, but I found it more interesting to work with a director. And conveniently enough, at the same time, it was about the time when Vimeo first just started and the digital revolution started to sort of unravel. Cameras became quite accessible. I think 5D Mark II came out roughly the same year. And and me and the people that I was studying with, my friends at the time, we just purchased all those cameras and little onboard mics, a couple of Zeiss lenses, and that's kind of all we needed. We used to hijack 5D Mark II with that software called Magic Lantern, I believe, back in the days, to get the maximum out of it. And we started to make little short films and documentaries and kind of travel a little bit and take on some commercial jobs here and there. And that kind of that escalated pretty quickly because it was so accessible and it was easy to get in touch with people online. Vimeo was a big platform. And and that's sort of how I started out, I think. Not the most conventional path, but that's what happened, yeah.
Can you take us from that point to whatever you consider sort of your big break as like a DP?
Yeah. When I turned 18, I came to New York to study English. My English wasn't very good at the time. I came here and sort of started to meet people on this side of the world who are doing the same thing and started to meet students. I lived in LA briefly, traveled between Europe and the States, came to New York. I met a bunch of students at NYU and also Columbia University at the time. On Saturdays, I would go to film class where students would sit with professors and eat pizza and watch movies all day and discuss. And it was kind of like an open class. If you're a student there, you can invite other people. And I knew a few people, so I had an in, and I would meet a couple of filmmakers there with whom I established long-lasting relationship, namely Ahmet Kulambigashvili, there, a Georgian director of Beginning and April, with whom I've been working for, I don't know, about 10 years now. Shot her second short film, and then we ended up developing her first debut feature film. I met Ari and Chuko Esiri, 2 brothers who directed a film called I Am Ofe, This Is My Desire, which is in Criterion Collection now. It was a small, beautiful film that we did in Nigeria at that time, on 16 millimeter. So I started to establish these relationships, and time would go by. They would lead to more and bigger sort of projects and more connections. I think as far as the beginning was definitely the important film for me to do, the film that I did with Dea. It took a very long time to make that film, but it was big, and it was in Cannes selection, and then it was that year when Cannes Film Festival got canceled because of the pandemic, so we went to San Sebastian, and it won all the prizes in San Sebastian. And Luca Guadagnino, who was the president of the jury that year, reached out with his next project, which was Bones and All. So that was the next big film to do. And it started to kind of grow from there and get busier and started doing films which would have the exposure that I wanted them to have, and people would be able to see them. And it started to have some impact on my career at that time.
I was going to ask about it later, but since you brought it up, can you just briefly talk about working with Luca and shooting Bones and All? I really, really love that movie.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great. Luca and I originally started to talk about a different project he had in development. It was a TV series for Apple. We talked about it for a while, but the project never took off, never materialized, and that's when he decided to pivot and came back with Bones and all. Very interesting film to work on. We shot in 5 different states. It is a road movie. We were based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We had a pretty long prep in the middle of the pandemic, shooting Kentucky and Indiana. It was a crazy ride. I think it was a crazy year because it was the pandemic. It was very beginning of the pandemic. It was hard enough. It was a very hot summer. It was the year when cicadas came out all of a sudden from underground, and they were just everywhere. Like, and I'm not joking. It was like it was tragic. Like, it was impossible to shoot, to record sound. We traveled a lot. We would relocate from state to state. Yeah, it was a journey, that film. It was definitely a journey, but it was like fundamentally important, and it was really, really exciting. Working with Luca was great, and we had a great cast. We had Timothée Chalamet, Taylor Russell. Yeah, it was one for the books.
Transitioning into our movie of the week, can you talk about how did you first meet director of the drama, Christopher Borgli?
Yeah, me and Christopher were in touch for a while, I would say, before we started talking about the drama. Chris had TV series that he wanted to develop, and we've been originally talking about that project, and that project didn't go at the time for which I was available, and then he decided to proceed with the drama. And it escalated pretty quickly. He started to work on the drama, got into development. I got a call. I went to LA to meet with him. I was actually on a fishing trip in Alaska with my friend. And we were like in the middle of like Western Alaska, in the middle of nowhere. And I got a call that I need to like start looking into the project. We finished fishing. I flew into LA to meet with Chris, and we kind of started to talk about the project from then on. I read the script, which was definitely one of the best scripts I've read, I would say. It was a very exciting script to read because you would turn the page and every time you would think to yourself like, what? What did this person just say? What did just happen? It got really, really captivating. It's a very witty script. It's a very smart, sort of dark script that has a lot of dark humor in it. And yeah, there wasn't a question. Like, I really, really wanted to do the film, and we met. We started talking about it, and yeah, and ended up working together. And that was summer 2024, I believe, and we started prep in, I would say, August or September 2024. So 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. Yeah.
And what were some of your like visual reference points and like your goals and priorities as far as how you wanted the movie to look?
We did this thing that I love to do usually in pre-production, and the producers on the film were very accommodating. We shot the film in Boston, and we rented a little theater, a cinema theater in Boston, and on weekends we would go and watch films. And that's a great way to open a conversation about references or sort of certain guidance. And it's not necessarily on the visual, because the crew would come on Sunday mornings and the cast would come. Z would come, and Rob, and we would watch films and discuss it in every possible aspect, not just visual. Visually, I think we discussed a lot of Claire Denis' work. We discussed Michael Haneke's work. The Piano Teacher was one of the films that we discussed, with this composed sort of maturity, with the space and with all the subtleties. I think the movie really works well if it has a lot of comedic elements, if it has dark comedy, like in this case, and it has that composed, firm maturity in terms of visual language. If the camera is not trying to be funny or to emphasize jokes, that's when I think on that juxtaposition, that's when it becomes even funnier and even better. We watched that. We watched Larry Clark. We watched Harmony Korine. We watched a lot of films actually. I need to sit down and make a list of everything we've seen. But we had a pretty long prep on this film. We had over 8 weeks of prep, for which I'm very grateful always. And yes, it was a lot of films, a lot of back and forth with those discussions, and rewatching certain scenes and coming back. It was like an ongoing conversation.
Can you talk about the breakdown of what was shot on location and what was shot on a stage?
Nothing was built on a stage, unless I'm forgetting. I don't believe we shot a single thing on stage. Extremely happy about it. It's interesting. It's like I don't mind stage, but I think when you make a film like the drama, it's really interesting how you start in prep, you start in pre-production, and you envision this world of the film somewhere in a distance. You kind of start to get a sense of it, and the deeper you go into prep, the more and more your real world starts to go into the background, and the film world starts to come forward, and you start to live inside the film world. Like the apartment where we shot the film, the Emma's and Charlie's apartment is a real apartment in Back Bay in Boston, and this became the apartment. Like where with our Airbnb or hotels didn't matter anymore. On Sunday, Saturday, me and Chris wake up, we get a coffee, and we go to the apartment. We sit down, we shot list for hours. We go, we look around, and then the production designer would come and the art director. They would bring a chair and they would bring a desk, and we'll look at this lamp and we'll discuss. And like the reality of the film taking over is really possible when you shoot on real locations. And we would go and revisit. We would literally at the park where we shot certain scenes, we would go to the park and feed the squirrels and sit on a bench and look around. And like in being immersed in the real locations, being able to revisit them, being able to spend time on real locations is something that I value always. You kind of just live in that reality. And then once the film is over, it's really awkward because apparently there's real life going on that you forgot about, and you have to go back to it. But all real locations, and also all real locations in Louisiana, in New Orleans, also same.
I believe you shot on Kodak film. How did you come upon that?
Yeah, we shot 3 perf. We shot on Kodak 5219. That's a 500 tungsten stock. The decision came. It wasn't really a discussion. Chris shot his previous films on film. I shot a majority of the feature films that I worked on film. It seemed like a natural choice. Digital was not really a discussion from the beginning, which I'm very happy that was the creative choice. We tested a lot of different stocks. Kodak has been super helpful, as they always are. We tested a lot of different stocks, and we ended up shooting on the 500T, but we ended up shooting the new anti-halation emulsion. It's a new product from Kodak that's coming out. Started coming out recently. It's coming out this year. I think pretty much from what I understand, every single stock right now is already that new emulsion, and they removed the ramjet. But we were one of the very first productions to test it. And I love it. I didn't really find any difference. I didn't find much difference between the old 500T and this one. And I do tend to choose one film stock if I can, because I think grain consistency is important to me. And 500 is just such a beautiful, versatile stock. It's just great on faces. It's great at night, exterior, interior. It handles everything very gracefully.
Can you talk about the lens package you used and what maybe ended up being your go-to lens throughout the movie?
We shot the film on P vintage lenses, which is Panavision's rehoused ultra speeds. Those are the lenses they're a combination of ultra speeds and super speeds from the 70s mainly, and P vintage is basically a set that unifies them and balances them and puts them in a modern housing. They're great lenses. They're beautiful on portraits. They have just enough character. They're not too vintage looking, and they don't attract too much attention. I think it was important for us to choose the lenses with a lot of humility and empathy, and not too much of an overwhelming character. I didn't want the lenses to draw too much attention to them, to themselves. Ultra speeds, we shot, and we use a lot of zooms, which not my usual thing to do, but I think zooms played a big role in this film, and the ability to zoom in the shot and the ability to reframe quickly. We shot with multiple cameras, was definitely beneficial. We shot on some Prima zooms. Chris is a great editor, and I think he thinks as an editor, and that's a wonderful quality for any director and cinematographer. In my opinion, you have to know the editing, and zooms allowed us to just move quickly between setups. We would shoot different coverage from different angles, a lot of eye lines, like the wine tasting scene that took us over 2 days to shoot. Like it was just a consistent lighting and 2 days of shooting that dialogue with multiple cameras, So yeah, zooms. Yeah, that was kind of the package. That was what we had, and we shot on Panavision Millennium XL2 cameras.
Is shooting multicam how you like to shoot, or was it a result of like having to shoot fast?
This is not necessarily how I always work. I do like the one camera approach, But at the same time, I think every project and every director requires a certainly, different approach. I think that two cameras allows you to get more out of the scene for the editing, and I think the editing in this film really shines. And it was important that I can provide this, that I can provide this material for the edit. I also think that it helps actors in certain scenarios. I think that if we were shooting certain scenes like the wine tasting scene with one camera, it would definitely take a big toll on how much time it would take and what a strain it would be on the talent. And I think it's just, yeah, I think two cameras definitely liberates in many ways, but only when it's called for. I think two cameras, three cameras, sometimes it's totally something that should be used and I think we've used it in many situations on the drama, certainly. But yeah, I think every project just needs a different approach.
And thinking on the edit, you were sort of bringing it up. The movie has a very specific editing pattern. Does that affect your work on set at all? It's sort of not your job, but it is like playing an effect on the pacing of the scenes.
That's a good question. I think you can never really imagine while being on set how the film will be edited. But what you can do is you can really get a very comprehensive idea of what's inside the director's mind in relation to a certain scene. Like what we would do on the weekend, me and Chris would go and sit down and shortlist everything, and then the following weekend we would sit down again and revisit the same scene and see if our shortlist that we did 7 days ago still stands. I think you start to understand what the director is after in every specific scene, and that gives you an idea of what to prioritize and what to pay attention to more. If you work with a director who is a very skilled editor, it definitely gives you a perspective on what we have, what we need, and what we might want to add that could be helpful and interesting for this specific scene. So in that sense, you start to understand how the director's mind works, but you can't possibly know how it's going to actually be edited, especially with a film like the drama. There are a lot of flashbacks, there's a lot of back and forth and time jumps, and it's quite a journey in terms of editing, So I think but you start to understand where you see the map, like you have a map of what you need and where you are.
We ask because it's different for different DPs, but do you operate, or did you operate on this movie?
I did not. I love to operate, and I do whenever I can. It happens very often that the union wouldn't let me operate when you shoot multiple cameras, which is okay. It's like, it's just a different way of working. If I'm shooting with multiple cameras and I have to let it go, especially if I have very strong support from my team, it's okay, because then it allows me to light more and better. It allows me to keep an eye on so many other things. I work with a pretty great team on the East Coast. My camera operator, Bianca Butti, is terrific. And we had a B camera operator, Terrence Hayes, who is local to Boston. Kelly Riley, the first AC. We had a great team on this film, and I knew that I could rely on them. So if I can delegate and give them the task of taking care of certain things, then that allows me to work more with Chris, and that allows me to go and check on costume and makeup and look at this and that, go deal with lighting. It opens other possibilities. I try to look at it this way, at least.
Whoa, Trent.
Oh my God, Parth.
That was pretty fucking cool.
I don't even know what to say besides, thank you to our guest. Thanks, Arseni Khatchaturan for, coming on our show. And it's we'll see you again next week. And it's great job on the movie. We both really enjoyed it.
Well, Trent, think about how you and I loved that, and we only got to meet Arseni Khatchaturan once. But the humble listener, this is only part one of the interview. They get to meet him twice.
Again next week, Sunday at 5 a.m., wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, or YouTube now, thanks to Producer Bash.
Producer Bash, who also, the listener, whenever they want to be updated on, when an episode is coming out, they can just follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Literally just do that.
Wait, And then they'll stay updated on like the episodes and like when they're coming out and like what we're covering and like also just like fun little like personality stuff that like happens to slip through the cracks sometimes. And it's like real quick, like shout out producer Bash. Like appreciate you. Welcome to the craft services family.
Yeah, he's been there now like solidly enough. He's not even that new a member. I mean, in the scheme of craft services, he's new. But
Parth, you're acting like you want him to like replace me at the next available opportunity.
Trent, Bash will not replace you. You're being crazy. You're crazy. Well, but Trent, this has broken a two film streak now of you not being in the interview. You have now broken that streak and you're back. Everybody, Trent is back.
Can I say something? We're so back.
Well, I've already been here.
But I'm so back then.
There we go.
No, but like we as a unit, Parth, it's like
That's
craft
true.
services isn't.
It's nothing without the two of us.
You become like an independent artist.
Mhm.
Like, you know, everyone likes, like, you know, like
who
John
gave a fuck about anything Paul or John wrote?
That's
after
what I'm
the
Parth.
Beatles?
That's what I'm saying. It's like John Lennon and Paul McCartney, like, and George Harrison and Ringo, like they all did pretty good stuff on their own, but it's like together.
They
Do
were
you
the
know
dream
what-
team.
It's greater than the sum of its parts. But I heard someone's Subway take was, or it was Ethan Hawke's Subway take, actually. Someone who I really like listening to talk, especially for a famous person. His Subway take was that, like,
there is no favorite Beatle.
there is no favorite Beatle. Like, it is their magic between the four of them that creates the Beatles. But it's like, it's a unique situation where it's basically impossible to pick a favorite. As soon as you pick a favorite, you start thinking about the other one, and you're like, fuck, they're my favorite.
And that's like you and me, Trent.
That's like listeners of the show. They're like, as soon as Trent is like sick or gone for 2 weeks working, they start to like Parth. And then they're with Parth for too much for over those 2 weeks, and then they start to hate him. That's when Trent comes back. It's the yin and yang of it. Parth, are you familiar with this Buddha symbol? In every bit of Parth, there is Trent, and in every bit of Trent, there is some Parth.
Trent, I'm always in you.
And I, Parth, within you.
Well, Trent, I'm so glad that we had this interview. I'm so glad the listeners listening to it next week. But more than anything, Trent, I'm glad you're back.
Thank you. We are so back. Yeah, Parth, more than anything, I'm just glad, like, I got to have, like, some time to, like, chill with my buddy Parth and, like, talk about, like, a cool movie with, like, a cool guest. It's, like, really our jobs aren't that hard or annoying because it's, like, get to chill with you for an hour, talk with the cool guy for an hour, bullshit
What more
with
could
you,
a boy
say you
ask
haven't had sex before. It's all in a day's work.
Just saying truths to one another. Well, I'm not married, Trent, though.
Soon, though.
Well,
Soon that your friend will become a close friend.
all right, I'll see you next week, Trent.
Bye, Parth.